would like to invite Daniel Calto, who is General Director for Solutions and Services from Elsevier. Please welcome Daniel.
Thank you, everyone. I'm following obviously a very dynamic speaker, and I'm unfortunately following him in English. My name is Daniel Calto. I'm the Global Director of Solution Services at Elsevier for our Research Intelligence Group. Before working at Elsevier, I was the Director of Research Strategy at Columbia University, and prior to that at NYU School of Medicine. So my background is primarily at academic medical centers. So my team uses advanced algorithms, semantic technologies, data visualizations, and other text and data mining techniques, basically machine learning, artificial intelligence techniques, to better understand the impacts that universities make in both basic research and applied research. We also try to measure how that research contributes to the economic vitality and dynamism of cities, of countries, etc. I have a lot of slides, but I'm going to be moving through them quickly. My main topic today is to look at the national research landscape in Romania and how it compares to some of its regional and global peers. The most pressing issues that the world faces today require a global and multidisciplinary approach. No university, no country can solve the issues you see up here alone. Oh wait, let's see here. I see. So no country can solve these issues on its own. We need to work together. The world spends a lot of money on R&D. In 2016, we spent $1.99 trillion. This is a chart of the size of countries' R&D investments in purchasing power parity US dollar terms. The x-axis is the R&D spending as a proportion of GDP, and the y-axis is the number of scientists and engineers per million people. Now, Romanian expenditures on R&D are significant. They're 1.5 billion US dollars per year, but they are low in GDP percentage terms when we compare with Poland, Turkey, Iran, Malaysia. These are all economies with roughly similar GDP per person. Most economies with similar GDP per person are spending about 1.0% of their GDP per year on research. Romania is spending about 0.4% of its GDP on research. I want to talk a little bit about the data sources used for this analysis, just so we have a common base of understanding. So why does Elsevier look at this? One of the reasons is we have an enormous amount of data. We have the most comprehensive data assets to map the world of research. We publish about 2,500 journals. We're the world's largest scientific publisher. We index 70 million records in Scopus from over 22,000 journals, from over 5,000 publishers in every field of research, from STEM to arts and humanities to social sciences. We have 90 million patent records, our sister company LexisNexis, and we also have 12 million author profiles with a full affiliation history. So this is a profile for every working researcher worldwide. This allows us to map and visualize the world of research in a way that no other company can. We go beyond publication data, however. We go beyond publication data, however. We also have patent data, usage data, data on institutions, and as I said, those author profiles. And we cover the world more fairly and more completely. We index about 1,400 journals from Eastern Europe compared to our competitor, which indexes around 600. And we particularly try to index research that's going on in rapidly emerging research economies around the world, whether that's East Asia, Latin America, the Middle East and Africa, and other emerging research economies. Things have changed very quickly in the world of research. In 2013, India spent about the same as the UK. 3 years later, India is now spending 50% more than the UK on R&D. So for governments, industries, and universities doing research, our products try to help support people to enable research, to conduct it, and to share it, and to report its impact. The tool I'm going to use today to discuss the Romanian research landscape is SciVal, which uses data from Scopus. That's the database that indexes the 22,000 journals. Before we get into the Romanian data, these are just a few of the partners we've worked with globally, World Bank, NIH, and many others, to do global level or national level analysis. And we can do a lot with the data that's available, both publicly and also data that's available through Elsevier. Our custom analysis, for example, lets us look at how competitive cities and countries are and how they're connected to industries. So Amsterdam asked us to do a study of how their university research compared to other university research in other major cities in continental Europe. We found out that they did biomedical research at a particularly high level, particularly impactful level. Then they asked us how they were connected to some of the major pharma companies and health science companies who work in Europe. And those are the blue nodes in the graph there. GlaxoSmithKline, Novo Nordisk, Novartis, et cetera. And you can see just from the graph that Berlin and Barcelona are their biggest competitors. They're connected to some of the same companies, and they're in the center of the graph, which means they're one of the most important nodes in the network. Let me go back here. We've also, the UK government has commissioned us 3 times to report on where the UK stands in the global research and development landscape. We just published this. These are all freely available. And this report looks at how the UK performs in the global context, because we know research is highly global. And we use huge numbers of quantitative inputs and supercomputing technology we can map brain circulation. Later I'll show you a brain circulation map for Romania. We can map global collaboration networks. We can look at highly cited articles. You can see there how China is rapidly rising in terms of the highly cited articles that excludes the US. We've also worked with the Indian government to look at key findings in Indian research, and their research has changed very quickly, as I mentioned earlier. But I want to get to the main topic of discussion today, and that's really focusing on Romanian science and engineering, and what is Romania doing in science and engineering. So Romanian researchers have published over 82,000 papers over the last 5 years. Math, physics, and engineering are exceptionally large compared to most other countries. So Romania has a strong focus on computer science, maths, physics, and astronomy, and especially engineering. It's much higher than global averages. If we can compare with a couple neighboring countries, this is the Czech Republic. You can see they're more balanced, less engineering and more medicine than Romania does. And we can also look at Turkish scientific output. They do a lot more medicine, but fewer of the basic and hard sciences. We can map every co-author collaboration for every Romanian researcher around the world with our database in Scopus. And here you can see Romanian researchers are working in virtually every country around the world, in Africa and Asia and Latin America, but most especially in Europe. Europe is the #1 place where Romanian researchers collaborate. It makes sense. And if we look at individual countries that Romania collaborates with, the country you collaborate with most is France. This is not a surprise given Romania's historic ties to France. Germany is after that with about 5,000 papers, and you also do about 5,000 papers over the last 5 years with the US. But you can see that your collaborations are primarily with Europe, apart from the US. One thing that's notable about Romanian research is there's not a lot of collaboration with Asia. For example, China is not in the top 10 of nations collaborating with Romania. China is the #1 partner for the United States when it comes to global collaborations. So right now, Romania is primarily collaborating in what I call the Atlantic Research Nexus. We can also look at institutions in Romania. Universitatea Politehnică of Bucharest publishes the most publications, and the institute with the highest citation impact is Horia Hulubei National Institutes of Physics and Nuclear Engineering. Oops. Romania has a scientific culture and tradition of excellence. It's got a very strong intellectual tradition, driven by linguistic and cultural ties to Western Europe, particularly France. It's highly distinguished in theoretical sciences, especially math and physics, but also basic sciences like chemistry and biology. And it also has a very strong tradition of inventors that are active in many branches of engineering. Just a couple examples, Dr. Bajan was born in Globali, Romania. He was a star athlete, a math champion, and a trained artist, and got a PhD at MIT. He's now a distinguished professor of mechanical engineering at Duke, and he's published over 600 peer-reviewed papers and made fundamental advances in modern thermodynamics and physical areas. There are some challenges to the Romanian scientific culture. The first is, despite being a high middle-income country with a PPP GDP per person of over $20,000, Romania is only spending about 0.4% of its GDP on research. This ranks below most countries with a similar GDP. And many of the top Romanian scientists work at overseas institutions, so there's a question of how to reconnect with those Romanian researchers. The third thing is Romania has fairly low levels of commercialization despite having being highly industrialized, having well-developed auto and aircraft industries. So optimizing academic and university and industry partnerships is also something that Romania could work on. Another example of an outstanding scientist is Dr. Ciurila. He invented and developed an artificial cornea, the first one in the world. He currently works in Australia, but he holds many patents in materials science. To look at brain circulation in Romania, and this is a map we can do because we have all this data. We know where people graduated, we know what country they're in and what institution they're currently in because of those author profiles. What we find is that Romania is a highly open research economy, and some of the most productive researchers in Romania are people who are non-Romanian citizens who are in Romania for 2 years or less doing research. These people, their relative productivity is over double some of the other researchers in this category. They're more senior, and the papers that they write have a very high field-weighted citation impact of 2.75. So it's not simply a question of brain drain, it's a question of brain circulation. And Romanian scientists going abroad and non-Romanians coming into the country really help the overall scientific productivity of Romania. If we look at a couple other examples, again with Turkey, we find that there's far fewer researchers going into and out of Turkey, and those researchers tend to be somewhat less productive. We can also look at a rising research economy like China. Again, only about 7% of the researchers in China are coming from the outside versus 25% in Romania. So there's really quite a difference, and that's probably the benefit of participation in the European Union, among other things. Just to give you an example of one of the areas of outstanding research, we can also look at not a country level, but an individual institutional level. This is the Institute of Physics and Nuclear Engineering. Their field-weighted citation impact is quite high. The world average is 1.0, so that means the papers that they write are 65% more impactful, and they've done a number of publications over the years. And of course, overwhelmingly, it's primarily physics and astronomy that they're working on. to look at a different institution. As I mentioned, the Politehnica in Bucharest publishes the most publications, almost 10,000 over the last 5 years or so. Its field-weighted citation impact is lower than the Institute of Physics and Nuclear Engineering, but you can see they're doing a wide variety of research, and especially engineering, material science, computer sciences, the hard sciences. We can also look at individual collaborations that Politehnica does with other universities around the world. Again, this is the University of Grenoble in the Alps. We've co-written 415 papers with them, and we can even, we can even drill down into the actual collaboration. 415 papers have been written, and you can see that those papers are far more impactful than just the papers written at Politehnica or just the papers written at Grenoble Alps. So this is a partnership that's highly productive, and this is typical. International collaborations tend to have very high impacts. We can also benchmark Romanian research versus its peers. The blue arrows here show Romanian research. So from a relatively low level, there was a rapid rise in the total number of publications from about 2005 to 2010. Then that leveled off, but Romania, compared to some of its peers, including countries with much larger populations, produces a lot of research. We can also look at field-weighted citation impact. So here, Romania is a bit lower. Field-weighted citation impact measures the overall citation impact of the work. Slovenia and Hungary have the highest field-weighted citation impacts here. And this is also an interesting chart. What it shows is the gross expenditure on R&D. So you can see Romania, it's only 0.38%. Slovenia, Hungary are spending over 1%. Slovenia is actually spending more than 2% of its GDP on R&D. So Romania is fairly low there. But what I call the bang for the buck measure, which is how many citations per $1 million spent, is very high for Romania. So Romania is very efficient in its use of monies. It happens to be better than virtually almost everybody else on the list, with the exception of Serbia and Croatia, which are extremely small. That's 3 times as high as the US, and it's higher than the UK as well. So even higher than the highly productive developed research economies. Now, if Romania spent, right now Romania is 44th globally in spending on R&D. If Romania spent 1% of its GDP on R&D, it would be 33rd among nations in total R&D spending, which is about the same level as South Africa. So if the R&D expenditure was increased in Romania, it would definitely move up substantially up this list around to where South Africa is now. We can look at top collaborators at an individual school. So you'll see the Politehnica collaborates highly international collaborations. They collaborate with Horia Hulubei first, but also with Italy, with Czechoslovakia, with Brazil, with US institutions, with Nacional de la Plata, which is in Argentina. So the Politehnica is collaborating very heavily on the global scene. I think I'll end it here, just given the limited time I have, but I wanted to give you a very high level of overview of Romanian research. There's a lot of pockets of excellence in Romanian research, and it's highly international in its scope and scale. Thank you.